you mentioned Jimbo and Nick Saban, of course, Carter, and we know that the SEC coaches are having their meetings in Destin, Florida this week. So, just the theatrics and the intrigue of just seeing how those two would interact in the same room, or if they would have to talk through interpreters or something, because I got to think Greg Sankey kind of pulled them off to the side probably before and said, you guys need to play nice and no more and whatever. But, it's similar to when we hear during presidential elections that this is a landmark election. This is the most important time in our history. It's almost like we hear that at the SEC football meetings each year, but this one's kind of legit. We saw groundbreaking expansion unlike we've seen in 10 or 12 years. And that was more from a quantity standpoint. This is from a quality standpoint. Two of the top 5 to 10 programs in the history of college football moving to the SEC. Greg Sankey talking about an SEC only playoff. The Pac-12 has already led the way with abolishing divisions, going to a different format there. The SEC is going to have to adopt different scheduling approach with OU and Texas coming in. All sorts of changes are on the horizon. Playoff expansion, even though it's been put off. It's just a fun time to be a college football fan and see how all this plays out. So, Carter, I'll leave it wide open to you to, what is really catching your eye on the big grand scale that obviously affects the SEC, or the SEC affecting everybody else. And where do you want to see this thing go?
Yeah. So, Mark, I'm very passionate about the SEC as a whole, right? And it's not so much like I'm a big fan of the SEC. I'm just fascinated by all of it, right? You have all these states that don't have big professional franchises, and this is their everything, right? And I'm going to be doing more like SEC general content on maybe some other channel. I don't know yet. But for me, the biggest takeaway is the new schedule format. For so long, you had this SEC format with this cross-division rival rule that, quite frankly, wasn't fair in the first part of it. And the second part of it wasn't really that fun, right? You had this conference of 14 teams, but you played each and every other team once every 6 years. That just doesn't make sense. You don't really have a conference then. It's not equitable. And, a lot of these kids, if you join a conference, you won't get to go to each and every stadium of the teams in your conference, right? What makes that a conference? It's the only, sports league where that is even the case, right? So I think the biggest takeaway from the SEC meeting so far is you're going to see a new schedule. Now, does that change when Oklahoma, Texas comes in, or does that happen sooner? I don't know. There's a lot of crazy hypotheticals. You've heard it, Mark. You've heard it, Lon, as well, as far as, well, we're going to the thing that Greg Sankey threw out in the Pete Thamel article. We're going to have an all SEC playoff. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I just think that was a little bit of a threat. I also think the SEC is going to be better long-term when they change up their schedule format. Now, what would be better for us as a college football ecosystem is if the SEC stretches its schedule out to a 9-game conference schedule, right? I think it would be better for everyone. But unless the playoff expands anytime soon, they're probably not going to want to do that. So it's probably going to stay an 8-game conference schedule. I know Ross Dellinger threw out that it's going to be a 1-game permanent rival versus a 7 rotation door, or my preferred thing is a, pod system, but not really a pod system where you have 3 permanent, teams and the other 6 rotate for the other 6 games. I think that is huge. And I think as far as the schedule format is concerned, it will not only make the SEC better, it'll make it, you have a lot of USC fans, got a lot of Notre Dame fans. Well, you can't just watch Pac-12 games. You can't just watch Notre Dame games. If you're a neutral observer, you want more games. You don't want, Alabama beating down Sam Houston State. You want more quality games, and it's something that Saban himself has pushed for as well.
Absolutely.
Anything there, Lon, that catches your eye in regards to what's being discussed in Destin?
Of course. I mean, for once, it's actually kind of true. They're talking about the very future and kind of fabric of college football here, because as the SEC goes, college football might go. You know, it's what that will look like. I mean, that's no joke or hyperbole. That's kind of freaky. I mean, they're talking no divisions in the SEC. That would be kind of interesting and cool. That would be a game changer for Brian Kelly. That's like he joined LSU, got the $100 million, and then just won the damn lottery on top of it. You know, we can lose to Alabama in the regular season and actually make the SEC title game still. But you know, if Sankey, this could be an all-out declaration of war versus the NCAA. If Sankey really wants it to go that way, it would be surprising if he did. He's usually not going for that type of stuff, but he will if the money and if the public trust in the SEC hinges on that decision. I don't think it does right this moment. Perhaps maybe in a few years down the road with TV contracts and that type of thing, but some things can accelerate in these meetings, as we've seen before. I think college football fans should be really open to change right now because it's coming whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And Mark, one more thing. I'm about to have to, jump out of here, but this is where it gets very interesting as far as like the Southeastern Conference, right? And it's not just an LSU thing. It's not an Alabama thing. It kind of comes down to a Greg Sankey thing, right? You look at the sport, and Mark, you talk about this on your channel. I'm sure you do. College football's lack of leadership. There should be some college football czar, whether it be you, Mark, or Josh Pate, or whoever else out there that wants to, provide some kind of leadership. And obviously, Mark Emmert, it's just kind of been pushed around. We can get into NCAA politics all we want, but the fact of the matter is, there's been a lack of leadership. And you look at the conference commissioners of the Power 5 conferences. This isn't my strong suit talking about this, but just watching from afar, they can get pushed around a little. There's no other way around it, whether it be television contract discussion or whatever. Okay. I think Greg Sankey feels weakness from the college football leadership. And whether it be this playoff expansion or this all SEC playoff, once again, I do think it's just a threat. I do think, and I've interviewed Sankey a few times. He doesn't strike me as this kind of guy, but he can actually increase his power. Obviously, with the Big Ten contract coming up, and they're going to get a fortune. The SEC is going to get a fortune with the new ABC deal, and so on and so on and so on. I do feel Sankey feels he can become even more powerful because of the lack of leadership on top of him and the changing door with the NCAA and all the different things with name, image, and likeness. So this is going to be a drastically different sport. It could be if Greg Sankey decides it to be. So we'll see what happens there. But Mark, as always, thank you so much for allowing me to chat on the platform. Lon, keep up the good work, and we shall talk soon, guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Everybody get on over to Carter's channel. Appreciate you.
Let's go.
Go Carter.